Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on Polywine, where we like to take a deep dive into stories pulled from the media and have a fun time while breaking it down. I'm Jillian, and let's get into it. So happy to be here with you today. There has been so much going on in the last several days, in the last week, really. There's just so much to get into. So let's work our way back several days and catch up till today. So let's get into it. So last week, we had the presidential debate between Harris and Trump. What did you think? Well, 67 million people tuned in to watch, an incredible turnout. What was your thoughts? Who do you think won? Well, according to pretty much most, other than the former President Trump, everyone pretty much said that they thought that Harris won that. She was much more polished, more prepared, had more talking points. Many feel that she didn't answer all the questions, and she didn't, and that's okay. I think that's pretty much, on the mark for most presidential debates. They have their solid talking points. They want to nail them, and they'll do whatever they can to weave in those talking points and get them across. Those are well rehearsed, and they need to slide them in. That those are their platforms. They need to nail it in because that's going to ride them to the election day, right? So she had hers, he had his. You can think what you want about the Lindsay Davis and David Muir. It did feel very dry, the debate. Personally, I thought, but I think that was a good thing in some ways. A little boring on some respects because sometimes you do get a little bit of an energy from the audience, but that also can be a distraction. So it's really nice that there was no distractions. It was nice that they did cut the mics as well, so there wasn't too much crosstalk. Although there were strict rules about mics being cut at a certain time, you couldn't interrupt or speak over. I thought ABC was a little bit lenient about that. Me personally, on both sides. I don't know. I definitely thought there was a boring factor. I don't know how to put this. There was a moment where in the very beginning, it's like, okay, Trump is staying on track. And that was the first several moments. But then you could see him start to spiral. But the moment that Kamala said he was fired, you could see that was the punch that got him, right? Like you could see him just in that moment, you could see the kind of like the tick in his eye and he spiraled after that. And there was just really no recovery. The comment about the dogs and the cats in Springfield, Ohio. Here is a fun fact. Just a side note. I have family members that actually live in Springfield, Ohio. I have had friends and family that have gone to the university there, Wittenberg. And there's been a backlash with that. So I just couldn't believe that he actually called out Springfield. It was such a shocker. But now it's even more shocking to hear in the news following that comment that there's been a lot of hate threats against the community in the town. They've actually had a lot of bomb threats. They've had to cancel schools, and universities there have had to go virtual. My goodness, I can't believe I said viral. Virtual. But it's just absolutely awful. It's just terrible to have such hatred come to a down on a story that is just absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. The mayor has come out and said that these comments are completely unsubstantiated, that he is not aware why that the former president would call out this town and call out this community. There's been such hatred and backlash that has come onto this Haitian community and the town itself. And, the people of Springfield are good people. And for that to happen is just so unconscionable to me. And where do we go from here? If this is, if this is before the election, what is going to happen after the election? In whatever direction it may go. It's scary to me because we've already seen what happened on January the 6th. And that was supposed to be a peaceful thing. There was a lot of tension then, but the tension's different. I feel like it's just so much more volatile, and it's just like the kettle has been boiled and she's about to blow. She is whistling and she's about to blow the top and blow over. And I feel that that's where we are right now. We're in that pressure cooker. We're in it, and the top little marker is spinning, trying to let the steam out. Like, it is done. People are ready. Their emotions are heightened. And, it's always nice to have, your emotions and your passions about politics. That's great, but we can be peaceful about our emotions and politics, because at the end of the day, we all want similar things. We want what's best for our family. We want basic things like healthcare and, education and a good quality of life. That's all we want. I think everybody will be so much happier, but everybody's so angry, and I'm fearful that whatever the results are, on November the 5th, I am fearful, because those who do not get the results that they wanted in the election, I'm nervous how they are going to react. And I mean, just because what we have seen in the last several years, and it's just, if anybody's ever grown up in the 80s, you remember what happened to Reagan. And that was just an absolutely incredible thing. It was, and because you didn't hear of that. The last time you had heard something like that was the parents talking about when it happened to President Kennedy. And your parents just like, I can't believe it. I thought that this would only happen once in my lifetime. First Kennedy and now Reagan. And for somebody who was just so young, it was just absolutely just unthinkable that somebody could do something to the president of the United States. It was just beyond my mind. But there's always that risk. There's always threats against politicians, and especially the president. That's why they have the Secret Service. And those threats are taken very seriously. But it's definitely heightened in the last, I feel like, since definitely Clinton. And what was it, Clinton who had the airplane that crashed on the lawn? That was Clinton, right? I'm trying to think. Was that Clinton? Was it Clinton? Or Bush? I'm trying to remember. I think it was Clinton. And then you had the gunshots when Obama was in office. And there's always those threats. But it's really revved up and gotten out of control. And there is no place for political violence. And I understand that we want the best for our countries, and we want to get our voices and our opinions and our votes heard. That's wonderful. Go out, cast your vote. But whomever wins, there must be, a peaceful transfer of power, and must be support for that person, whomever goes in office, to do the best that they can to get the best for the American people. That is the ultimate goal. So let's stop turning on each other, because after November 5th, we all still have to live with each other, neighbors, families, friends, coworkers. Even though we may not agree, we still have to work with each other. And it's been so toxic. I've heard of marriages, friendships, business relationships, things like that break over for political reasons. And, I kind of always grew up with this saying, there's certain things that you don't talk about. You don't talk about money, you don't talk about religion, and you don't talk about politics, because you just want to keep the peace, right? And that's where we got to go back to that. It's just everything's out there now. And even though I think political debate's a wonderful thing, it really is. But the part of debate is keeping your emotions in check, but also, backing it up with facts. So there is that. Getting into one other story in politics, let's go over to good old Bernie Sanders. So today, Bernie Sanders was on the Hill, was on an expert roundtable, and he was taking on the makers of the very, very, very popular and expensive maker of the drugs Ozempic and Wegovy. And they've got to be making money, because I am telling you, every time I hear a commercial, it's one of two. It's either Ozempic or Wegovy. They must be making a ton of money. So he was doing an expert roundtable, because next week the makers of Wegovy and Ozempic are to testify before the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. So they were doing an expert roundtable, and he was just laying it on him. And basically, he was saying that the company was price gouging and charging around $1,300 a month for the drug, where in other countries, such as I'm looking at NBC News actually here, so I get it straight, that it's about $186 in Denmark, about $137 in Germany, and about $92 in the UK. So why are the American people being charged $1,300 a month for the exact same drug? It's absolutely preposterous. It's so absurd. And I have to, I'm just medical bills and the pharmaceutical industry and the insurance industry is such a very bitter subject to me. I've spoke before in the past that I have a child that has a lot of medical and special needs. So it is a constant battle. And even having insurance, private insurance through work, and it being astronomical every month, the out-of-pocket expenses that we pay even with insurance. And it's decent insurance. I mean, it's decent compared to many. It's decent. It's not great. It's not awful. It's okay. I personally feel I should get a lot more better deals with what I pay a month out of pocket. But, I'm luckier than some. I have it. So therefore, I'm fortunate. But it is just such a bitter, jagged pill in my mouth and to swallow. It's just infuriating, it's upsetting, and it affects so many. And the fact that bankruptcy, medical bills, is what bankrupt most people. I think the statistic is like 1 in 4. Medical bills bankrupt 1 in 4. And I'm not 100% on the statistic, but I'm pretty sure that's somewhere around there. That's how high the number is just mind-boggling. It's upsetting. It's just wrong, and that's got to be fixed. So, thank you, Bernie. Thank you with all the other political just ridiculousness that's going on. Thank you for still holding down the fort and keeping other things in check and still getting things done when it's really important. So, a tip of the hat to you, Bernie. You're still getting it done, and thank you for fighting for all of us. I really appreciate it. So now let's take a nice hard right turn. We did a little politics. Now let's go into a little bit of entertainment. Well, let's go into a little bit of entertainment, some pop culture. What's going on? Let's go have some fun. So I don't know if on Sunday night we had the Emmys. Exciting. For some, I gotta tell you, I didn't even watch. I'm kind of numb to it. I feel like I've seen them all. I heard that the Levy dad and son duo did a really good job. I do enjoy the red carpet. I didn't see it live that night, but I did go back and watch some of the highlights. Everybody looked nice. I don't think there was anything too crazy, nothing stand out. The lady from, was it Abbott Elementary? Her dress was kind of really cool. I like that. Jodie Foster looked nice. Allison Janney, I thought her dress was kind of haute couture, very kind of cool. Kristen Wiig looked nice. There were some nice ones. Nothing too crazy. Sometimes you like to see some avant-garde kind of style. But Not that I saw, maybe if I missed it, but it looked good, it looked nice. So tip of the hat. I'm very excited that, let me just pull up my page over here because I want to go through the list and make sure I get the list right. The Emmys, I feel nice that I actually kind of knew some of the shows going on, because usually I have no idea what they're talking about, who's winning, what show, drama, comedy, I don't know. So I'm really pumped that Best Drama went to Shogun. And if you haven't had a chance to watch that series, it's awesome. I've talked about it in the past. If anybody has not had a chance to watch that series, it is a great watch. And you don't have to wait week to week like I did when it was airing. But now you can go back, Hulu, and you can see it on Disney Plus. Absolutely awesome. It's historical. You will have to read subtitles. It doesn't even matter. Friends of mine that I was like, you have to watch it. It's incredible. They're like, I can't typically make it through a movie that has subtitles. I check out too quickly. They didn't. It's just so much action. There's so much history. There's so much, you're learning about the culture. You are so immersed in what is going on in this show. I just absolutely could get enough. And incredible cast. So congratulations to them. Plus the girl, was it Anna Swahi, won Best Actress, and she deserved it. She absolutely deserved it. Great for her. She was, I was not familiar with her work before, but man, if she has not put a name for herself, and the entire cast for that, and I don't know if a lot of them have done the cast from the show have done a crossover to a lot of English speaking movies or television, but they have now. That's for sure. I mean, what an amazing cast. And let me give a little shout out to the cast that wore a lot of the traditional Japanese wear at the Emmys. They looked absolutely beautiful, and it was nice to have a nice blend and a nice good mix and just of beauty and culture and history and elegance sprinkled, a little bit something nice sprinkled extra into the Emmys this year. They needed that. They really did. So congratulations to that. I'm also very happy that Best Comedy went to the series on HBO, Hacks. That might be one of my favorite series. It really is. It's very well written. The comedic timing in the show is hilarious. And I've talked about it before. Was it Jean Smart and Hannah? Oh my God! Please forgive me. I'm forgetting her last name at the moment. She did a. Was it Netflix? I think it was on Netflix, or maybe that was on HBO Max as well. But she did a stand-up. In front of release on I think it was HBO. So, but she's great on that show, and she's the writer for Deborah Vance, and just everybody works so well on the show. Great casting, great writing, great timing. I just love it. There was a big hiatus between the seasons, but man, I hope they come back soon. I absolutely love it. Some of the other kind of big winners, I'm going to kind of clump them together quickly. We had The Bear. We also had Baby Reindeer. I'm also glad the guy from The Morning Show, Billy, is it Crudup? God, he was great in that role. And that's on Apple TV. If you haven't had a chance to watch The Morning Show, and I think they're filming the new season now, highly recommend it. That's a really good show. There's several seasons in, so you can catch up on it really well. And even though it's a couple years ago, and I think it started pre-COVID, it's okay. You can easily jump into a lot of the stories. It kind of still relates to what's happening currently in the news, politics, things like that. And some of it that we've kind of lived through and moved and evolved out of in society, in news and culture. It's kind of interesting to look back on it. So that's a really good show if you haven't watched that series yet. That's on Apple. Enjoy that one. Anything else? Oh, the other one I was thinking of is Jodie Foster. Finally, Jodie Foster. She got one for her another HBO win. HBO had a good night. That win was for her series, that limited series, True Detective, Night Country. They've had a couple of the series. True Detective is kind of a little eerie, kind of dark mystery. That was a little twisted. I liked it. Some didn't, but I did. I thought Jodie Foster was absolutely great in it. She was kind of rugged. She was tough. She was straight up Jodie Foster. If they're going to grab somebody for that series that was needed, she was great. She really was great. And I'm so pumped. Two of my favorite guys that I like to watch on TV for comedy who are hilarious, Jon Stewart and the cast of The Daily Show. They won for Best Variety Talk Series. And I do another HBO Max win, John Oliver, last week tonight. He won for Best Variety Scripted. Well done, HBO Max. Like, you were a little dry there for a while, but you've been hitting some solid hits lately. So well done on that one. And my guy, who I just adore so much, Alan Cummings, and the show The Traitors on Peacock was Best Reality Competition Program. And that's what they won for. And he also won for Best Host. So absolutely awesome. I love him. And so congratulations to The Traitors. And I think they've just recently wrapped up filming their other season. And I'm excited for that to hit the air soon. I can't wait to see who wins. I really enjoy that show. But getting back to Alan Cummings. Alan Cummings was just on that documentary or the docuseries that HBO Max, and they're not a paid advertiser, but I got to tell you, HBO Max has been, they've been pumping them out, but they also had I'm telling you, it is probably one of the best docuseries that I have seen in a while, from the people that brought you the Tiger King. And I mean, wow, when the Tiger King hit during COVID, not only was the timing perfect because everybody was locked in, and that documentary or docuseries just spread through the internet, social media, went viral, memes, spread like wildfire. And it was fascinating. I mean, just the subculture world of this wild exotic animal brokering, trafficking, well, I guess that's what you should really call it, kind of. And just the whole trade system of exotics is just wow. And the characters that you meet along the way is just, it's I mean, you can't turn your head away, and it just keeps you hanging on for more, because you're like, oh my God, it's just interesting. The people are just characters. There is just no other way to describe it. And Tanya Haddox, I mean, wow, the Dolly Parton and Monkey Mogul, wow, there's certain things of Tanya that you can feel for. You can understand her love of the chimps, right? And they went into how she started off as a very young foster parent. She ended up adopting a daughter from the foster care system. She fostered many, many children. She also had her own biological child, and she has great love to give, and that constant need of wanting to be loved and needing to give love just really fuels her. And her son talked about, and I think it was episode 3, and he really went into this, his view of the psychology, and maybe he's had years of therapy, I don't know. And I am not a medical professional, but he was just going into a lot of him saying, I understand that my mom has to give love, but she's giving so much love, and she needs this so much that she's kind of making irrational decisions, and she's putting herself at high risk and others. And true, but you could also see the torment on her biological son, I think his name was Justin, out of all the years of almost kind of being second fiddle to these animals, because they constantly, these chimpanzees especially, and a lot of the baby animals that she adopts and takes care of and then sells, they constantly need her. So she's fueled by that constant need of love and attention and giving and nurturing. And he was kind of put on the back burner. So you can see him talking about what his mom's going through, and he's trying to understand and be compassionate and empathetic about it. But you could also see the torment of the years or decades of the toll that it's taking on him. So it's very sad. But I mean, that docu-series, I don't know why I keep calling it documentary, but that docu-series, I'm telling you, it's great. But, at the end of the day, putting all that craziness aside, at the end of the day, Tonka and the other chimpanzees were rescued from that place. They were taken to a beautiful sanctuary in Florida. And I believe the organization was called Save the Chimps. I'm looking at TMZ actually right now. And yes, it is called Save the Chimps. And evidently, that since the documentary has aired, the organization has seen an increase by 200%. And they have had a massive increase of followers on Facebook and Instagram. And I think that's wonderful news. So when you see at the end of the documentary, this beautiful sanctuary where all the chimps went, and Tonka is there with a family of 17 other chimps on his little island, and it just looks beautiful with the flowing water in between the islands. And Tonka looked really happy at the end of it, and it was just beautiful and wonderful, and it just excited people and it inspired them to donate and do something and become active with this organization. So at the end of the day, you might have been frustrated. Some felt frustrated. For Tanya, I did not. I felt bad for the chimps. They looked frustrated, and seeing the other stories of what can go terribly wrong by domesticating chimpanzees, especially at all, but especially beyond certain years, you just can't do that. You just can't. It's not safe to yourself. It's not safe to the public. It's not safe to anybody. And it's not fair to the chimpanzee. So at the end of the day, they ended up in the right place. Like I said, the beautiful sanctuary. And congratulations to the organizations. I'm sure they could have used the funds. And so at the end of the day, great story for the organization and great story for Tonka. He looks so happy. And Tonka is getting ready to celebrate his 33rd birthday. So happy birthday, Tonka. Is it wrong that I will still want to call him Tonky B? Just on the side. Sorry, I just had to throw that in there. Every time I think of Tonka, I think Tonky B of that whole performance that Tanya gave. But on another note, again, happy 33rd, Tonk. We're happy for you, and you're home. Your new place looks gorgeous, and I hope you can celebrate your birthday with your other 17 new family members. So, since that was that chimp crazy document had some dark moments, let's kind of get into another little bit of an unsettling and potentially, I would say, a little bit of a dark subject as well. So TMZ actually did one of their investigative stories, I believe it was last night, and it was talking mostly about Matthew Perry and his untimely passing as a result of drug overdose and drowning. But that particular episode, because it's a series that TMZ actually does, and it's decent if you watch it. And these are the things that I watch late at night when I can't sleep. But I gotta give it to Harvey and his crew at TMZ. They do a great job of taking a current story, breaking it down well, and I mean it's TMZ, so they're fortunate. They have everybody. They can get access, like any celebrity, to do an interview. But this particular investigative report was called The Secret Celebrity Drug Ring. And when it talked about it was prompted by Matthew Perry and how he had access to ketamine, and that ketamine eventually was what killed him. And having too much in his system, he got into the jacuzzi and ultimately he drowned. And according to medical reports, he had enough ketamine in his system that was enough, essentially equivalent to what they would use for general anesthesia. So, I mean, that guy was knocked out. And he had that much in his system and he was in a jacuzzi, he was in water. So ultimately the drowning was what officially was the cause of death, but it was prompted by the excessive amounts of ketamine in his system. And so that was kind of what was triggering it. So it went down the dirty lane of celebrity drug abuse and kind of where a lot of them, start their drug addiction and where do they get their source of their addiction? Like where, and what are the topic of drugs? And a lot of them went into how painkillers were the original kind of kickoff for them. That was their gateway drug. And it was mostly opioids. And Kelly Osbourne was on there. She was a fantastic guest. And she went into this story about how she was 13. And she had her tonsils removed. And it was painful. It naturally is very, very painful. And the doctor prescribed her, I think she said it was Vicodin was the first kind of opioid she was exposed to. And she liked it. And she said, at that point in my life, and she said something I felt that was quite profound. She said, in that moment, I didn't know it, but I found what I was looking for. And in that moment, I was looking to be numb, which is interesting for a 13-year-old. I mean, she grew up in, a high-profile celebrity home. I'm sure cameras. I mean, she had the reality show. It had to be a lot. It had to be extremely overwhelming for a teenager, a young teenager. So I cannot imagine what this girl was going through at that very young, influential stage of her life. And then, boom, have these, painkillers that kind of mute and null your feelings and your emotions, and you want to sleep the day away, and you don't really live your life. You're just kind of going through a haze, and that's how it starts off. And you're a teenager. Hormones are firing and things are growing and changing and that are beyond your control, and it's hard to wrap your head around. And that's why teenagers are so emotional. There is just so much massive change happening all at once. It's overwhelming to their bodies. It's overwhelming to their senses, and it's sensory overload in so many ways. So to be exposed at Vicodin at 13. And she said that's where it started. And then it eventually kind of upgraded to Oxycontin. And she's like, and that's on a whole different level. And she said, and that's kind of where it started. And she said something else. She said, my drug dealer was never like a street dealer. It was always a doctor. And she said, I knew how to work, manipulate the system. I knew how to tell them what pains I was experiencing. I knew how to get what I wanted. And she's like, so I take my accountability on that. But she said, but the fact that it was out there, and Harvey Levin even asked her, so at such a young age, how did you get the prescription? She's like, I would go and pick up the prescription, or I'd have somebody else with me go and pick it up for me. And he then asked, well, did the doctors even call and ask your parents if that was okay for you to even be, administered this drug or for you to take this drug? And she said no. And there was even one point they had talked about that I guess a doctor had tried to report that doctor that was administering all these drugs, and nothing happened. And he had so many great, people that he was interviewing. He had Mike the Situation from Jersey Shore, and he talked about his experience. And I thought his was a little bit more. He talked about his opioid, his pill addiction. Mike the situation, and he was very honest, and he was talking about that he's getting ready to open his own rehab center. And I thought there was other stuff, and maybe there was, but he only talked about pretty much the prescription medications. You had Harry Dubrow on there from Botched, and Heather Dubrow's husband from The Real Housewives of OC. And and they had some other people that they were interviewing. Great interviews. It was a really interesting watch. Yeah, I was totally fascinated. It's sad story. But Kelly Osbourne was right. And she talked about her rounds and rounds and rounds of rehab that she went through. And just some of that stuff that she talked about, rehab. Oh, and Dr. Drew was on there, Dr. Drew Pinsky. He was a great interview too. He was talking about, I hope this doesn't happen, how people take advantage, how the systems and the rehab facilities could possibly take advantage of, the people that are there for the rehabilitation. And it's a sick cycle. It really is. And I found it fascinating because we all know someone somehow that is near to us, friend, family, just a loved one of some type, and that has been affected by some type of addiction, and it is destructive and it's heartbreaking. So I thought it was a deep look into it, and well done, TMZ. That was a really good one. They've all been pretty good, but that was a very, very good one. And again, so sad. But again, Kelly Ripa, what I was going to say, not Kelly Ripa, Kelly Osbourne had said, they said, "Are you shocked? Were you shocked to hear about Matthew Perry's passing?" And she said, it is shocking and it's sad. She said, but I'm not surprised, because ultimately, most of the time, addiction ends up in institution, jail, or death. And yeah, and she's right. She was right on that. So if you have a chance, or even if you are just curious about this whole thing, because the doctors, those texts from the doctors that were supplying Matthew Perry with the ketamine, and of course, you had the ketamine queen. I mean, those text messages that came out, how much do you think this moron will pay for the drugs, is just absolutely, oh my God, it makes you so angry. So angry. And to hear it happen over again. And also, there is a incredible series. It was a limited series on Hulu. It came out a year or two ago. It was called Dopesick. And it starred Michael Keaton, who was phenomenal in it. And I think he actually got an Emmy for it last year. Phenomenal actor in it. And all the cast were absolutely incredible. A lot of newer stars were in it, but all of them were incredible. The writing was great, but it was about the opioid crisis that really kind of kicked off in, I think, the late 90s and early 2000s, and how it really spread through Appalachia and through the entire country, but really hit hard like Kentucky and West Virginia and Ohio, and that. And through the South too. Let's not forget, it really hit the South awful, like Florida and terrible. But that was a great because it shows you how the pharmaceutical companies infiltrate those doctors and just hit them hard with those drugs, and how they push it and sell it, the pharmaceutical companies. And that's also goes, and they went to the Sackler and how just absolutely horrendous the Sackler family is, and ended up going to settling out a huge lawsuit over the opioid crisis. I mean, that is such a great show. If you have not watched that, I'm telling you, if you know anybody has ever suffered with opioid addiction, or just any type of prescription addiction, or just addiction at all, this series was I'm telling you, it was one of the best series I think I've ever watched. And I've talked about it before. I am originally from West Virginia, it really hit home in many ways, because it absolutely destroyed that state. So if you know somebody who suffered with it and you really want to get a better understanding of kind of how it just really took off and just like wildfire, Dopesick is an excellent series. And I'm telling you, just for, if you have, I think it was like 40 minutes, the TMZ special about Matthew Perry, and it's called Matthew Perry and the Secret Celebrity Drug Ring. You know, good show, good special on TMZ, great series. But at the end of the day, so sad. So sad. I mean, we've lost so many to this crisis. And if we don't understand and inform ourselves how it's out there and getting out there and pushed, I feel like it's going to repeat itself again. So if you have a chance, watch one or the other or both, but you will definitely learn something. That's for sure. So now let's move on to Netflix. So on September 19th, Netflix is releasing a new docuseries called Monster. And it's the Lyle and Eric Menendez story. And there has been a lot of movies and other like documentaries about this before. The story about the Menendez brothers and the Menendez murders. And interesting, some of them were good, but I think this docuseries is going to be the winner. First of all, it is brought to you by Ryan Murphy. Ryan Murphy has produced some great shit. And last year he did, or was it? No, maybe it was the beginning of this year, or at the end of last year. But The Swans about Capote. Oh, that was such a good series. And he did a few of the Capote one called The Swans was part of the Feud series. He did that one, and then he did another one called Betty and Joan, and that was about the feud between Joan Crawford and Betty Davis, and that was Susan Sarandon and Jessica Lange. That was really good too. So those two the two Feud series were awesome. And then, I mean, Ryan Murphy's done everything. So he's bringing this one to Netflix, and this is about the Menendez murders. And it's Javier Bardem is playing Jose Menendez, and Chloe, I'm going to say her name wrong, Sevigny, she is playing Kitty Menendez. And if you have a second to watch the trailer, if you remember this story, if you're into that whole crime genre and you like that crime, the murder mystery, all that stuff, there's no mystery, this one, you know what happens. But I saw the trailer, highly recommend you watch the trailer. It looks like a really awesome docuseries. Javier Bardem can really get so dark. He can hit that dark place as an actor. He really can. He's one of those guys. He's one of those actors that's so good at being like a dark character. I sometimes have a hard time watching them in other stuff because all I can think is how creepy they were in the other role that they played in a different movie. It's almost like, okay, not to get sidetracked so much, but that's how I tend to work. Eric Bana in Dirty John. Did you see the Dirty John series? First of all, it was another series that was so good. It's a real story, true story. But they did a series years ago, and pardon me, I forget who aired it originally at the time, but that show was so good. But Eric Bana played the bad guy. But he played it so well, and he was so demented and so twisted and just channeled such a dark and disturbed character. And I loved Eric Bana. I mean, he was the Hulk, for God's sakes. How can you not like him? I've liked him in so much stuff. I can't watch him anymore. I can't, because he's always Dirty John to me. So I think Javier Bardem might hit that in this role. He's done some really dark things before, and I mean, that's what just makes him so good. He's an incredible, versatile actor. He's done everything. He's done every character, but he's such an incredible and versatile actor. But when he goes dark, he goes real dark. When he gets twisted and goes to that really unsavory psychology, it's just Oh, but God, he nails it. So I think he's going to be great. She's a really good actress as well. I'm excited for it. I think it's really going to be good. And it's such a terrible story. It is so terrible. You know, say what you want. What has it been, over 30 years now? It was the 90s when this crime happened. When the Menendezes were murdered, but it was just so shocking. At the time, it was just unheard of who murdered their parents. But then during the trial, you heard just the absolute horrific life that these otherwise extremely privileged, people lived. I mean, but there was extreme abuse. The wife was abused, but she was also twisted in her own rights. She had her own issues. The dad was just abusive sexually, mentally, physically, just evidently a horrible person, but but protected to the world that he was wonderful. And these children were tortured souls. But on the outside, they looked like they had the perfect life. They were extremely wealthy. They were at the best clubs and they had the best cars and were given everything. But once the doors closed, once they walked through that front door at home, it just sounded like a nightmare, just a hellish existence. And you feel for them in that situation, but they still murdered their parents. They're convicted murderers. They still murdered their parents and then went out on shopping sprees following their death. And it was just, oh God. It kind of, when I was thinking about it earlier, it almost has some hair of a similarity to the whole Gypsy Rose story that happened. I mean, she lived a tortured life as well under the care of her mom. And then she ended up, hiring, or not hiring, but, getting somebody to kill her mom for her. And she was in the next room. She was there when it happened. So, they're murderers. They're absolute murderers. But I'm not saying I do, but some have sympathy for them because they murdered out of almost a defense mechanism, for a lack of better word or terms, which is just, that's why these cases like the Menendez and the whole Gypsy Row things, it keeps people interested because there's such mixed emotions involved, because even though it was wrong, and they are convicted killers, but they acted out of survival, pretty much. And I think that element of the case and the situation is what keeps that raw emotion element of it, and the abuse is what keeps those cases, I think, interesting, and kind of still kind of keeps going on and on and on in the news cycle and in history, because we remember it. We remember how shocking it was when we found out about the murders and in these different cases, and it was shocking. And I think that's obviously what makes it such big, memorable cases, and that's why they just keep coming back up. So that's going to be an interesting documentary. And I don't know if you remember, I think it was last year, Netflix had a docuseries come out, and it was called Menendez versus Menudo. And that was Jose Menendez. And the conversation was how he abused some of the members of Menudo. I can't even speak tonight. I don't know what's going on. And Menudo was that, it was on that. Geez, how long did Menudo, was that around for? Because the members just keep swapping out. It was that Latin boy band that, it had to be over a decade. But once the members aged out, which was still relatively younger age, they would get swapped out with a new young member. And it just kept going and going and going. And the members kept swapping out and swapping out. And let's not forget, one of the greatest of all times came out of Menudo, right? Ricky Martin. And he also, let's not forget his American transition as Manuel. the bartender on General Hospital, anyone of a particular age, of my age group, the first thing you did when you would walk home from school, you would come home, you would throw your backpack off on the banister or on the floor or chair, wherever you did when you came home from the door. You would turn on General Hospital, because that was on right as you walked home, and then straight to Oprah. That was like church to me. And I think every person I grew up, that was their routine. And if that wasn't your routine, I'm so sorry. You've missed out on teachers, experiences, and just fantastic television when you were a child. You missed out on education. That's how I look at it. From General Hospital, Manuel, which is Ricky Martin, and Oprah. Okay, but that docuseries, Menendez versus Menudo, that was just, I mean, you heard the torment of the previous singers and cast members of Menudo, but I mean, how they were tortured and abused, and just, so when you hear them, the children of this band being abused by this one individual, and then you hear the stories of his own children being tortured by him. It's just, he sounds like he was just a horrible person, but that doesn't mean he deserves to be murdered. So, I'm very excited. I mean, that was one of the crime of the century. Just, you had the Menendez brothers, you had the OJ trial, then you had, Michael Jackson stuff, I mean, those were the big trials of the century, of the late 90s, the early 2000s. I mean, and now, geez, now the new trial of the century, I think, is going to be the whole P. Diddy one. Oh my God. It's bad. He was arrested. He was denied bail. Right now he's being charged with racketeering, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. There's quite a long list of other allegations that they are trying to push, but it's a long one. There was one about arson too. My goodness, it's lengthy. The feds must have a lot of evidence. They must have a ton of evidence. I mean, they have been working this case. I mean, the whole Cassie situation really blew the top off of this. It really did. And they're going at him hard, as they should. If this is all true, as they should. I'm just going to put out there innocent to proven guilty, but it looks bad. It looks really bad. And it's a lot. And he knows it looks bad because he's already offered, like he said, he was denied bail. He offered to put up his Miami mansion for bail, for bond, and denied. This is going to be a fascinating trial for legal scholars, for legal students, for anybody who just enjoys watching these kind of celebrity trials. It's definitely going to draw attention for sure. I mean, the celebrity profile of it all is going to take it to a whole other level. I mean, my goodness, look at what happened with the whole Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial. And that was entertaining to watch because it was two scorned people, and just to see that bickering and that fighting. And it did take down Amber Heard. I mean, she had to move to another country and change her name. I mean, it took her down. So, but I mean, do we remember like the OJ trials and, anything that's on that kind of celebrity level? And so it's going to be just, the legal teams cannot make any missteps in this trial. They cannot. There's too much writing on it. There's too much profile on it. They cannot. They have to learn from the mistakes of the past in major celebrity trials. And I'm sure Marcia Clark is there to give them any words of wisdom that she can, what you should stay on track to and what not to do and to avoid. So let's take lessons from past. There's too much writing on this case. And he's going to have a stellar legal team, Sean Combs. So Sean P. Diddy, whatever you want to call him, Sean Diddy. He's going to have a stellar legal team. You know it. But it's not looking good. But I got to tell you, I feel that there is a little bit more of an axe to grind with the Southern District Attorney of New York. They also handled the whole, the end. They had the whole Ghislaine Maxwell trial. Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend. And he was also in Manhattan in that whole legal thing when Jeffrey Epstein died. They were waiting to charge him. So I think that they really want to go after this, and they should. This is horrendous, absolutely egregious, disgusting crimes. And if he's found guilty, and they're going to be on it. So I'm curious to see if there's going to be cameras in the courtroom. If not, I cannot imagine the leaks that are going to be coming out, and it's going to happen. It's going to happen. There's always leak. And I know that the courtrooms are always really good. They try and, you're not supposed to have cameras or phones in the courtroom, but something always leaks out. And there's going to be a ton of journalists. I can't imagine how long the lines are to get a seat into that courtroom. It's going to be absolutely absurd. And it's going to be fascinating. It is absolutely insane that, there has been so much talk in the rumor mill, in the entertainment, the music industry about Diddy, and this is where we are. Wow. And that video of him apologizing, please, media, stop airing that video of him under like that tiki top, in the Caribbean or wherever the hell he is in paradise. Let's just say that, saying, I feel awful. This is Diddy. And I won't forgive myself. That video is such bullshit. That's bullshit. And the crimes, some of the stuff that's leaked out about some of the allegations and some of the evidence they have, oh my God. And then that stuff, everything that came out with Cassie, his ex, with the Cassie Ventura, is that her name? Just, oh my God, just that poor woman. That woman has been tortured, and she's going to have to heal for the rest of her life after that situation, the abuse. We've all seen that video of the hotel, was it 2016, where he beat her and then drug her back to the room by her hair. He dragged her back by her hair. It was so upsetting to watch that video. Everyone reacted. Every woman wanted to vomit. To see another woman, or just anyone, an individual, but another woman get beat down by her partner just so violently and openly. He did it right in the hallway of that, in front of the elevator, in the middle of the hotel, on that floor. If he is just so easily to run out in his towel and beat the crap out of her in the middle of the lobby while she's waiting, of that floor, that waiting area for the elevator, out in the open like that, what happens behind closed doors? And then to see him drag her back by her hair into that room, oh my God, that your heart just drops to your stomach, or to your feet when you see it, because something bad is going to happen to that girl when she gets behind that door, because she had the courage to run in that moment. She didn't make it, but she did have the courage to come out later on. She filed a report against him, and she exposed him. And that was kind of like the kickoff to all this other legal stuff that's come his way. And Cassie, you are brave. We salute you. We want to hug you for what you endured, but you are so brave to come out and report this and put him on blast for what he's done to you, what he has done to other people, other women, other young people. That's in the allegations, not mine, allegedly. It's, oh my God, it's just unfathomable. It really is. And people are sick, and those sick deviants need to come down. So we're going to be getting so much more out of this. And there's going to be a ton of leaks on what are some of the evidence, even though we're not supposed to, it is. This is so high profile. There are going to be leaks. We are going to be talking. It's going to take a while for the court case to happen. So let's see what we hear and see and what gets leaked out until then, because it's everything that has been leaked out. It's just getting worse and worse and worse. Now that there's going to be other witnesses, other people that has been in Diddy's sphere for many years, the gate has opened. The floodgates are open, and the deluge is going to happen. A lot of people that have been asked to come forward are scared because I mean, it's considered, the way that the legal teams have been described, this is very mob-like. So this is very widespread, and it can be very costly. So people are scared to testify or talk or even acknowledge that they have any knowledge or relationship with anybody. Everybody's backtracking as fast as they can. They want to get away from it. So for those who come out and are brave enough to come out, thank you for standing in your truth and defending yourself and defending others that have been victims. So let's see where this goes. It's going to be interesting. Wow. Diddy's going down. And you know it's bad when you're denied bail, because they know he has the means to flee. So he was denied bail quickly. And just to be shut, even with the high-powered legal teams, to be shut down, what does the judge know? Wow. So this is going to be a tough one to watch, a fascinating one to watch. And I'm telling you, from a very long time forward, there are going to be legal students studying what goes on in the case, just like before legal students before them studied the OJ trial and other famous cases. So we'll have to wait and see where the trial goes and what the end result is. And I'm sure it's going to be chaotic, as other famous celebrity trials have been before him. It's going to be definitely chaotic, that's for sure. I'm just thinking through the Rolodex in my head of all the other celebrity cases that I've watched over the years and on TV, and it's just been chaos. So let's wait and see and hope justice is served for the victims, right? So let's end it there. There's so much more to catch up on. We'll have to catch up later on in the week. But thank you so much for joining us today on Polywine. Please check us out on the gram at Polywine Time and listen to podcasts wherever you can. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye.